Hello, yes, if you want to watch the video, the timestamp is on the screen right now. If you want to skip this bit, that's fine. First, I just want to say that we've now got a members tab for the channel. So essentially, you can get exclusive perks from joining the members part of the channel. All you need to do is click the join button on the channel page or use the link down below in the description. You can get everything from influencing upcoming videos, exclusive polls, name credited at the end of every video, and also early access to future videos. So if you're interested in all of that from as cheap as 99p a month, then make sure to click the link below or the join button on the channel page. Anyway, enjoy the video. Is Spider-Man Far From Home as bad as everyone says it is? This is an interesting question because over the last couple of weeks I have been reflecting over the film, thinking about its cultural and character significance. And to be honest, I'm starting to feel it drop further down my list every time I do a ranking or a tier list with it in. But I couldn't place my finger on what it was. I couldn't figure out why I started to turn against Spider-Man Far From Home. What was it about this film? Was it the constant negativity the film had brought on by the fandom? Was the movie actually weak? Well, that's what I'm going to be answering in today's video. Is Spider-Man Far From Home as bad as everyone remembers it to be? Okay, so we need to break this down in the most objective way possible to really come to a conclusive answer as to why people seem to not like this film. And reviews have differed from what they think is the weak point in this movie. It's usually either that Peter repeats his arc from Homecoming again, or Peter is a passive character throughout the entire movie. And these two arguments are the most regulated arguments when it comes to defining why Far From Home failed. And while these two subjects definitely do play roles as why did this film bogged down, which I'll get to more in a minute, I don't actually think it's those things specifically that actually hurt the film. I do believe the issue of Peter repeating his arc from Homecoming does hold some influence on the outcome of people's perception of this film, but I will come to that. Let's first talk about the Peter is a passive character argument. If Peter Parker being an active character is what you'd rather, and to be honest, I think to a greater extent, we'd all prefer an active character because they tend to be more interesting, it's not inherently an issue that this film has. Active characters and passive characters can't be defined as good or bad. And like I said, active characters tend to be more interesting. Passive characters can also have a place in the story as to why they are passive to the plot around them. However, Spider-Man and especially Peter Parker can work both as an active and a passive character. And I think Far From Home is a decent example of him being a passive character and it not necessarily really being an issue. Yes, Peter's character is far more interesting in other films and shows, but him being a passive character isn't an issue that I can fault the film on, if that was the intended outcome. For example, Peter is a passive character for a portion of Spider-Man 2, one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, especially towards the start of that film as well. Peter's social life is relatively passive for episodes of Spectacular Spider-Man or the 90s cartoon. So for me, Peter's personal life being passive for a proportion of a story isn't really all too bad. And inherently, this isn't actually an issue. It's just the way that they portray the passiveness within the story. But we will get to that later. Now let's analyze and talk about Peter repeating his arc from Spider-Man Homecoming. I agree with this, but I also don't at the same time. I am very much on the fence about this issue because on one hand, Peter still evolving past Tony Stark makes total sense for this film, especially when you take Spider-Man No Way Home into account. His whole arc over the entire Home Trilogy is to become Spider-Man by the end. And this is represented through the new suit, him living alone, and becoming the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that we all know and love from the comic books. And I know people will tell me that that job was given to Homecoming's conclusion, but by the end of No Way Home, he became Spider-Man, like properly. It was a trilogy-wide arc, which spanned 3 films. But on the other hand, I can totally see why it might seem repetitive. If you put it into perspective, each film ended with the same intention of Peter finally becoming his own man and accepting responsibility as Spider-Man. This message was advocated at the end of every film, and while it is a trilogy-long arc, I do understand why some people might consider it repetitive. But once again, this can be excused, as like I said, it was intended to be a trilogy-wide arc, and that's exactly what it was, and that's what its purpose became. As much as you can label it as criticism when the film came out, with the addition of Spider-Man No Way Home, it makes sense as to why this was still his journey, still a part of his path in Far From Home. And I will admit, if it wasn't for Spider-Man No Way Home, Far From Home would also be a lot weaker, so props to that film. But with all that character stuff aside, let's look at the film structurally. Is it poorly paced? Poorly acted? Poorly written? Yes? No? I don't really know. The structure of the story and the beats and the character moments are really spot on. Like, really. Looking at storytelling structures like Sid Fields' paradigm or the hero's journey model, we can see that it hits the nail on every head of dramatic storytelling. Number 1, ordinary world. Peter is at school with his friends and he goes on vacation. Number 2, call to adventure. Peter is called up to help Mysterio fight the elementals. Number 3, refusal of the call. Peter refuses and wants to be on vacation, and he wants to date MJ. Number 4, meeting the mentor. Peter meets Quentin Beck, Mysterio, who becomes his mentor. Number 5, crossing the threshold. Peter encounters Hydro Man and the elementals for the first time. During the ordeal, death and rebirth section of the hero journey model, this is what we would call the midpoint in Sid Fields' model, and arguably the most important part of a dramatic screenplay, as this is the point in which a twist or some kind of action is built from the previous conflict. This midpoint would be where Peter gives Mysterio the Edith glasses, and Mysterio reveals that he's actually the bad guy. This would be the midpoint of Spider-Man Far From Home. So from this point, the falling action now determines that the goal is now to defeat Mysterio and not the elementals, meaning that the second plot point on Fields' model would line up perfectly with him defeating Mysterio and restoring the status quo. Structurally, this is a fine screenplay and a fine story. So what about the other characters? You see, this is where this film starts to fall apart a little bit, in my opinion. During my analysis, this is one box that couldn't be checked. One thing that this film does that even the other two Home movies do is that it gives no depth to its characters. Ned, MJ, Betty, Flash are all one-dimensional as far as I'm concerned. We get hints that there is something potentially going on with them, like Flash's parents not showing up to get him, etc. But apart from that, they're all just there to serve the story and just be a part of the plot. Now, you could make the argument that every fictional character is there to serve the story, but a good character is disguised into serving the story in a meaningful way, meaning that they add depth to the story and weight throughout their backstory, good writing, personality traits, baggage, moral beliefs, etc. And one of my biggest issues is that Peter is also one of these characters. Peter obviously is one of the better written characters in the MCU, apart from Far From Home. And retrospectively, even in Far From Home, Peter is probably the best written character, which says a lot about the side characters. So speaking of the side characters, let's look at them. Aunt May should not be okay with him being Spider-Man. And I know this is a criticism that has been repeated multiple times across this platform, but it has to be said. This is one of the biggest no-nos of Spider-Man Far From Home. Peter should also care that Aunt May knows this. Peter, despite wanting to escape and hide from being Spider-Man, which does tie into his arc in No Way Home, still defeats the purpose of the character and should have never been explored in this manner. As soon as Peter ignores his responsibility and duty towards helping Mysterio, he wipes any and everything that makes him who he is. And it's honestly night and day when it comes to No Way Home. Every character in that film is written well and down to a T, especially in comparison to Spider-Man Far From Home. So let's look at a few examples and a few comparisons of the character work done from Far From Home and in Spider-Man No Way Home. In No Way Home, Peter thinks about others and not himself and learns the lesson of responsibility. In No Way Home, Aunt May is the mentor figure she should have always been in the MCU. In No Way Home, MJ deals with her consistent disappointment, which is a metaphor for her past life being so tragic, just as it was from the comic books. In No Way Home, Ned's family is involved with magic, which is something that gives the character way more depth than he ever had in Spider-Man Far From Home. These characters actually have substance in this film, even if it is the slightest bit. But in Far From Home, there is nothing there, and that's where this all starts to fall away for this film. In conclusion, Spider-Man Far From Home is not a bad movie necessarily. It's structurally sound and has a good screenplay and generally has a good story. It has all the story beats lined up in perfect fashion, but its lack of empathy towards its main characters has it sinking below the rest of the trilogy and makes this film seem like a Disney Channel film in comparison to what should be the quality and the standard of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is why I think Spider-Man Far From Home really is bad as everyone makes it out to be, especially in comparison to other Spider-Man movies. But it's not that bad. Not like the worst movie you've ever seen kind of bad. It's just pretty weak as Spider-Man movies go. And I want to make that really clear. I'm not hating on Spider-Man Far From Home. In fact, I really loved Spider-Man Far From Home when it came out. but as the years have gone by, I've started to notice the flaws within the film, and it definitely doesn't stand up to the likes of No Way Home, Spider-Man 2, and Into the Spider-Verse, respectfully. Spider-Man can do better than Far From Home, but it exists, and I don't really hate it. I just think it's pretty weak in comparison to the others. But anyway, that is it for today's video. So if you did enjoy, make sure to like on it, make sure to subscribe if you are new, and also we have a members page where you can get videos early. So if you're watching this video right now, and this video doesn't actually go out until maybe a Wednesday or a Saturday, then you are a channel member. So make sure to click that join button if you have not already, and join the members page where you can get videos exclusively early, and I'll post maybe 2 or 3 every single week that you can go and watch before they come out. So make sure you go and click the join button, become a member. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care and peace.